you draft a contract and you sign it before you start a job, or how does it? Is it just an agreement, verbal agreement?
No,
How
no,
does
no.
it work?
So it started out as hey, I know you. Let's work for you, pal. Hey, gentleman's agreement. You'll get paid out X amount of money, and you'll do the work, and you'll get to it whenever you get to it. Blah blah blah. That's fine. But then the higher your volume is, and the higher your price point is, gentlemen's agreements become less and less healthy for everyone. Because what happens is in a gentleman's agreement, there's lack of clarity and specifics. So a prime example is you'll be a gentleman's agreement. You'll be like, hey, I'll cover your event and get some photos. Oh, that sounds great for £400.
Yes.
Fantastic, great. Well, in my mind, some photos is like 20, maybe 30 photos.
Yes.
In your mind, it's like 400 photos. Well, then I deliver. I'm like, hey, I'm done. Can you pay me? And you're thinking, wait, I'm paying £400 for 20 to 30 photos? Are you kidding me? That's not when you should be having the surprise effect. That is the worst time. So what I do is we have these things established in advance. And it's a matter of, okay, here's the contract. And the contract needs to be signed before 5 p.m. on the day of the shoot, and or the payment needs to be made ahead of time or by 5 p.m. on the day of the first shoot. Otherwise, you don't get any deliverables until payment or the contract comes through.
Do you usually get the full sum, like the full amount before you shoot, or someone can pay half of it?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, and the reason you do that
Yes.
is because you are in the creative industry. So if you leave it with a gap of saying, hey, pay me now, pay me when you get it, then what you're saying to them is, pay me now, pay me some of it now, but there's leeway to push me down the line. And what you get, and there's horror stories for content creators, horror stories of you've created this masterpiece, you've poured your heart into it, and then you've delivered it, and you never hear anything. You never get your residuals back, you never get paid out, and it's kind of like you've just been taken advantage.
Oh my God.
And that can happen with some of the most friendliest, nicest people. So you gotta be very disciplined in protecting yourself, not in an abusive way, but what you've got to do is, like, for instance, you go to a restaurant, it's, hey, you'll get the goods, and you pay for the goods on the same day.
Yes,
You
right.
You don't wait to pay when you feel like it.
No.
And so, or a car. Hey, I want a car. Well, you buy the car, and then you drive it a million miles, and then you don't drive it and then come back and be like, hey, I'm gonna not pay as much now, or I'm gonna push back. So what you do is you say, okay, here's the price, here's your deliverables, here's your timeline, and here's the ownership permission bracket of what this looks like, and here's our operational permission. So like, as a company, I'm in my contracts, I have this stipulation that says I can hire contractors, I can control my contractors based off how I want.
Yes.
You can't do anything about that. I also have a clause where, if you're running the event, you can't hire my contractor to do work for you personally without going through me.
Yes.
And vice versa. So that way it's completely controlling.
That's nice.
And that way, the risk really comes down to the business. And a business is going to always want to deliver if they want to have credibility.
Yep.
So you're going to deliver within that 15 business day that you promised. But if you want credibility, you're going to deliver it way quicker, and you're going to deliver it to a spec that's high.
Yeah.
So the leeway you give a client if they're unsatisfied is, for instance, video.
Yes.
You give them one free edit round, and then you bill them at about 80% per edit round after that. And then that kind of mitigates, because you should have gotten a clear brief beforehand.
Yes.
And in that contract, if you're like, hey, dude, just do whatever you want, in that contract, it's TNS has the permission to do whatever they want. And therefore, all judgment is at their discretion. That gives me legal credibility to be like, hey, I made a video. You might not like the video, but it's exactly what we agreed on.
Yes.
Yes. So any specs have to be agreed on ahead of time.
Yes.
Or by the shoot briefing.
As you're talking about how you structure your contracts, I remember when me and my wife owning this restaurant, we always had a request for quotation from the government how to supply meals to them, you know, the way, and I'm seeing the logic behind how you do your own contracts. Because for us, you get the request for quotation, you agree on the terms, you know, when you're going to deliver, you know, how much you're going to deliver, you know, and then you take it. But now when it comes to payment, especially the government contracts, it is like a slow thing. And then you have probably got some things on credit, you know, because of course, you know, running a business like a restaurant business, there are a lot of supplier you have to deal with. People that supply fish, meat, ingredients, and all of that. The package, the containers that you use to supply. So now you're caught into, or you're into a situation whereby you have to dip into your money to pay for the suppliers, because you thought, you know what, if this money comes through on a certain date, I'm able to meet my obligations. That's why it is really important that you stipulate exactly how you want things to be done in the contract.
It's exactly. And then actually for all my suppliers, so my freelance workers, my other employees, their contracts with me is actually tied with, they get paid 3 days after the deliverables and payment has been received from the company. So my company has no risk to pay out the contractor. The contractor bears the risk of whether or not they get paid. But my contracts with my client requires that they pay before the project starts.
That's amazing.
So, and then what I do is I don't pay my contractors or my employees until 3 days after they've delivered it, because the client has a 2-day wait period where they can, you know, dispute the deliverables. So 3 days means, you know, it's been disputed and +1. So you've given them. So my company's never at risk to pay an employee. My company's always has positioned themselves in a strategic way to prevent that.
Oh my God, you're so wise, man. Yeah, let me tell you, if you don't stipulate the things clearly and everyone reads it, right, and say, yes, I agree to this, you're going to be in serious problem. Because time came that the government started holding some money back because of, remember, now now they start saying that it has to do with when you go outside the tax bracket or something. So they start, if you didn't like write down certain things in place and they agree to that, you now start bending to what they're saying. And they hold some money. So now you have to reclaim that money at the end of the year. You know, and say, you know what? And sometimes you may even forget because you have too much stuff to do. So I think it's wise. It is like really wise to do what you're doing.
I would not work with a government. Like, pay me now or don't. Like, thank you very much. It doesn't matter if it's like a fortune. I probably not gonna pay. But it's interesting. Like,
there's a lot of bureaucracy too.
Yeah, and I have no interest in that. Like, by the time I can fill out the 6 forms, I could probably land a couple clients. And move on. So, but yeah, so that's kind of that. We don't hold any of the risk. And then, like, if you look at high production teams, companies are paid out regardless of the satisfaction rate. Now, if quality is terrible, then there's a conversation. But, you know, if you've got the tools of the trade, your quality is never going to be terrible. It's just now going to become subjective, and then there's dispute about, you know, was that on spec? And so, for example, like with high ticket clients, I always require that the main person, the main decision maker, or, you know, the owner or the CEO or whoever is on site for a little bit of the first shoot period. And that way they can sign off on everything right then and there. So I come back and say, no, you've had your people there, you've had your senior people there, we have the contract, and you've already had to pay. So
yeah, that is amazing. If you got any value in this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. As always, I thank you for watching and see you in the next video.